I have some guys that work for me that are flash-centric, but my job is anything storage and software-defined infrastructure. So that could be our traditional DS8000 family, our Spectrum Protect backup, Spectrum Archive, could include our StoreWise family, as well as our flash systems. So my team works on anything that is in the IBM storage portfolio. Previously, the Spectrum products had been part of what had been called Tivoli Storage, and Tivoli Storage was actually a separate group last year. And at the beginning of this year, Tivoli Storage was merged in with the storage division, which, by the way, is very common in the storage industry. All of our competitors, the storage software entity and the storage systems entity, are merged together. Historically, IBM had not done that, but we fixed that and merged them together in January. I do think the one difference is that software-defined storage is a little broader than what you and I know from the old days as pure backup and archive software, and it now encompasses things like our Spectrum Accelerate, which is literally a software instantiation of an XIV full solution that will run on anyone's hardware, not just that software on our own hardware. So I'd say software-defined really began way back when, in the old days, had a different name. I think backup and archive software was the original actual software-defined, and now software-defined is not only that, but is now actually grown to things like the XIV or our Spectrum Scale product. Again, another product that gives you scale-out network attached capability, scale-out NAS, if you will, but doesn't have to run on any of the IBM hardware, can run on other people's hardware. So I think software-defined has expanded beyond backup and archive to be a broader meeting these days. I think the key thing that IBM would like to do is give customer flexibility. So the SAN volume controller is actually available as Spectrum Virtualize. So SAN volume controller would be the software with hardware combined together. The features of the SAN volume controller and Spectrum Virtualize have actually been merged into our flash offering with our new V9000, which incorporates all the feature function of Spectrum Virtualize and the SAN volume controller. Our StoreWise V7000 and our StoreWise V5000 also have those features integrated into the what would be called a standard array configuration. At the same time, we have customers who just buy standalone Spectrum Virtualize or standalone SAN volume controller and use those products actually with our competitors' storage arrays. For heterogeneous shops, especially a lot of big global enterprises, as you know, John, from your past, are usually heterogeneous. They have IBM storage, but they also have from our competitors. So when you use the SAN volume controller or Spectrum Virtualizer, one of the V-oriented arrays, you can create one sort of operational process for replication, for snapshotting, for thin provisioning that works on anyone's hardware. So that's got a value. Second value it offers is extension of life on older hardware. So if you haven't leased your hardware, some people lease, but for a lot of people that buy, there's no reason to get rid of that 4-year-old EMC array when you buy the brand new IBM array. Just take the workloads that are lower tier and move it to that EMC array, which is now a couple years old. You could do the same thing with HP, with Dell, and we could do transparent migration of the data in the background on the fly. So you could, as you're moving data to the brand new IBM array, you can migrate the data transparent to the hosts and to the end users themselves, and then you can take older workloads and stick it on the older EMC array. So it does extend the life of older hardware in the field. And then the last thing, of course, and just use as an example, is migration. You know from your past, I know from my past, I've never ever met a CIO, or definitely storage admins, who didn't complain about how hard it was to migrate data and how expensive it was. A lot of people charge a lot of money in the vendor community. I talked to a customer a couple weeks ago at one of our other shows, and the guy said he took it down to do migration of a whole weekend. He would go down for the whole weekend, planned downtime. But with the migration capability in the Spectrum Virtualize and the SAN volume controller and things like the V9000 and the StoreWise V7000, you can do the migration transparently and keep your systems up and running. So that's a huge pain point, and it can be automated. So you don't have to pay big consulting fees or have big downtime and have to have your guys come in on the weekend. From a cultural perspective, what you've got to do is get everyone to realize it's all about applications, workloads, and use cases, and that drives everything. And if using LTFS technology, Spectrum Archive, but have it bundled with our tape libraries or our tape loaders is the right solution for that customer, we should do that. And it's all about their app and workload. If on the other hand, someone is using someone else's tape technology and Spectrum Archive will work with someone else's hardware, it doesn't have to be our hardware, we should be again offering and asking what's the application workload and use case. And it could be Spectrum Protect, would be traditional backup. But if it looks like it's a heavy file base and they think that file will be better from an operational perspective inside the customer, then they should get Spectrum Archive instead of Spectrum Protect. So part of what we're trying to do in our sales teams and our pre-sales teams is train them. It's all about application workload or use case. You define that first, then you decide what is the right thing to do. And whether it's a hardware-only solution, a software-only solution, or a full system solution, hardware and software together, we want them to buy the right thing for that application, use case, and workload. And that's how we've been training the sales team for the last couple months with the launch of Spectrum.